First and foremost is to believe, right? I mean, when I talk to students, I try to say to them, you can start a business of your own. You don't have to look for a job. You can be your own boss. You can grow this economy. You can fulfill your dream. You can think big.
It was my mother who said to me upon graduation, took me by the shoulders, "You cannot make a mistake. You cannot make a mistake." And what that was very empowering for me, right? It gave me the confidence. Right? It's not strictly true. You can make little mistakes along the way, but in terms of the big picture, having the confidence to know that your choices are true to yourself and are good and sound, and that you have options. You can, if this doesn't feel right, you can go the other way, was a very empowering piece of advice for me.
It's good. Don't wait too long to know who you are. Especially when you are early in your career, we tend to dress and we tend to behave like what people expect us. And unfortunately, I know it now, when I'm much older than you, to tell you that the best advice that I can give you is that try to feel best in your own skin, get to know yourself. That's the best advice that I wish I would listen to me.
The best piece of advice that I ever received, I actually received recently, and that was to embrace my silo of being a woman in financial services versus trying to fit in and try to be a part of the boys club. And just, I think, playing to embrace who you are, and it's okay to be who you are. So that really resonated with me recently, like last week. Really. So, I totally agree. This is a She Leads panel, so I'd have to be honest in saying that the workplace conflicts that I've been faced with have been with other women. So it's just a thing as women, we tend to not embrace other women all the time, right? There's sort of that, what's she wearing, what's she doing, who is she? I was going for that promotion, did she get that promotion? And I've found that going into companies and trying to mold a job, especially in social and digital, it does get a lot of attention, right? Because everyone is still trying to figure it out. And I have been faced with a couple of challenges where maybe someone feels like I came to take their job, or maybe someone feels like I'm coming to spy on their Facebook page and, and tell HR. None of the above. But one of the things that I've done and I've learned is to just face my challenge head on. I've invited people to coffee. I've picked up the phone and said, I noticed your email. I don't want to assume your tone, but is there a problem we can work out? And I have noticed that in those moments, a lot of people just go, oh, like, well, so you're kind of nice. And I didn't, I never thought that you would actually confront me. So, one of the things is, if you can, try to navigate the situation and maybe try to put the fire out early and just sort of address it head on. Find a common interest, coffee, lunch, how can we work together? And, that's just one thing that I found has worked for myself.
So I have a mission, right? And I didn't finish the introduction. At some point, I didn't want to put you to sleep. But I co-founded the WIN Lab, Women Innovating Now, for women to start their own business based out of the Babson. We're opening it out now to all the women in the Boston area with the idea that women would take the lead and own businesses. This is my passion to try and help the community. And it started from where I felt that it's in companies, women do not get equal payment. They do not get equal opportunity. They don't have the chance to build a culture. They have to fit in instead of fitting out. And I think that salary is very important. Even if it isn't important for you, do it for other women. So when I get into a salary situation, I go for the top. I go beyond my expectations. And sometimes I don't, because I'm not so greedy. You know, I'm an entrepreneur, so I really care about building the business, not so much about how much will I get out of it. But I do it, and I remember that I have to bring the market to a point where we are getting equal pay. And you are not. So when you negotiate, do your homework. Know exactly the numbers and shoot above that. Always above. It's like pricing. Again, I come from sales. You can always decrease price. You can never increase that, right? And that's your obligation, because that will dictate how people treat you, how your bosses will treat you, who you are, what you think about yourself. This is something that is not negotiable. Where you come in, that's the first impression. And even if you really want the job and you think, you know what, I'm not sure I'm gonna go, I'm not gonna get it. When somebody comes in and she sits straight, right? Or maybe she stands up and she say, I really believe that I'm worth X. You're in a different position. Versus, you know what? I really want my first job. I'm willing to compromise. People will take you. But that's what you're worth.
And you'll pay for that for years.
Exactly.
This is really fantastic advice. You know, it's powerful, because if you think about it, not just you, right? Like, maybe you don't care all that much about money personally, and maybe you don't. But you're not just in it for yourself. I think that's incredibly powerful advice.
Right, because actually today, how many people know what percentage of a dollar that women make in America? Yes.
77.
Yes, 77 cents. And oftentimes that comes because women do not negotiate. And right from the start, you're kind of selling yourself short there. So it is great advice to kind of go in and actually be able to negotiate. It's a very common thing. And not many women feel like they can do that. So great advice that you gave.
I would add, you have to be prepared for anything. I saw just this morning a story shared somewhere on Twitter about a woman who came back, and the salary was a little low. She wanted it up, but she also, I don't know if anyone else saw this, she wanted 5 or 6 other things. And so she laid them all out in an email about things that would make that job more enticing for her. And her final line was, I get some of these things will be easier to grant than others, but let's have the conversation. They wrote back and they rescinded the offer. You read this.
I read that.
Right.
So that's scary, but on the other hand, now we're all talking about this, and we're all prepared for battle.
Right, right.
And it's not just about salary, though it is about the money, it's about the salary, but it's about lots of other things too. A recent negotiation I'm familiar with, someone negotiated in being able to hire his own co-op from his own alma mater, right? There are other things of value that if maybe the salary isn't quite there, maybe there's other things you value that test your negotiation skills and also get you something more,
Work-life balance.
Yeah, well, maybe it's work-life
When
balance.
you're a parent,
Right, maybe vacation, maybe other benefits. So those are all things you can negotiate with.
When I meet with students, what I see you guys, you have so many opportunities to choose from. You do. And sometimes it's very confusing. I see that at the lab, when women try to focus on their businesses, but there's internship, and yes, I can do this, I can do that. You have to decide where you want to focus. Right? If it's going to be climbing the ladder, right, or starting a business, it's very hard.
The one answer I will share is I think emotion in the workplace is a double-edged sword. There's a lot of articles you can find about this. Everyone's allowed a frustrated moment. Everyone's allowed to let the tears flow. You think about even Hillary Clinton and the times that she's been emotional appropriately and inappropriately. And I think that that happens to all of us. So I think there have been times when I've witnessed a person whose emotions get the better of her, finding herself without opportunities for advancement. But at the same time, I don't think that there's not a place for it. I think certainly at Grommet, some of the hard times that we've had and some of the wins and successes we've had all reduce us to tears. There's still stories I can tell that I can't tell without choking up, just because the business has meant so much to me, and I do feel that emotional about it, and I would never apologize for that. But there is a fine line for when that can go too far.
I would say sometimes oversharing. I think sometimes as women we get really comfortable with coworkers and things like that, and sometimes you can overshare. I mean, and it could be, it's a personal thing. Like for me, I'm purposeful about what's at my desk and around my desk and what's open for conversation and what's not, right? Just in my personal life and my family, because I have seen that sometimes there are the women that sort of overshare, and I agree with you that there are absolutely times for the emotion, but sometimes that oversharing can contribute to that, maybe those times where that emotion could have been held back a little bit. So that's one thing that I would say.
I think too, so with me, I work with a lot of younger women and or younger people, and that the women can fall victim to gossiping more than the men, or get caught in gossip more than the men do. It's a little perhaps more catty. And that when we talk to them, we just say, you should never tell somebody something that you wouldn't, I would never say something to Kate that I wouldn't say to her face.
Right.
And that's how you should operate, and that goes true for email and for whoever you're working with. You don't want to be spreading anything, and I think that it can be career suicide if you do. I think that part of the most difficult part is as you get up higher in the ranks of Shawmut, there are fewer and fewer women. We have 0 executives that are women. We have 1 VP, but the layer below that, there aren't any women. And so it's kind of finding your place, or not, and I think Sharifa, you kind of said this earlier, but the boys club, like there is such a boys club at Shawmut. We are a construction company, and while we're somewhat corporate, it has a blue collar background, and there's that, real, they have a hockey league, and they have a flag football team, and they play basketball, and it's, there's just there isn't any breaking into it, and that's fine. I'm okay with not breaking into it, but it's kind of understanding where you fit in with them and where you can bring your value and get credit for what you do. And I know that at Shawmut I started, I work with a lot of people that are engineers and have a strong technical background that are really bad at writing. And that is definitely one of my strengths, and so I started working with the executives, and this is before we had like a PR team and we'd run through everything. And so that was kind of a way to provide value and get buy-in and have a personal relationship with these guys that didn't involve, playing hockey. Not that I wouldn't like to play hockey. And so I think kind of finding where you can connect personally without oversharing is important, and where you can show your value to them is huge.
Don't work in a place that you don't like.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I mean, when you look on the job description, that's just one angle, right? The question is, do you connect, right? The reason that Jules started Grommet is because it was a place that woman feels very comfortable. That wasn't the mission, but that's what Grommet is. When I started TikTok, I welcomed Muslims, Jews, Christians, so we covered all the Bollywood spectrum. I wanted a different type of culture. The core values are critical. And when I started and said, know who you are, do it from the beginning. Because I remember early in my career, because I ran sales and it was very different, I was called the bulldog, for example, because, I was aggressive, was, assertive, whatever it is, because I was in a very man-dominated culture. But, the more I move on, I realize that it's not about just the job requirements. It's, do you fit in? Do you feel comfortable? You are as a whole person, right? I mean, things really changing when you're going to go out and look for a job or hopefully start a business. It's different now. It's about, you know, I want to raise my family, I want to respect my faith. It's not just about the job, it's you as a whole. Do you feel comfortable? And it doesn't show yet. I mean, employers don't get that, but you are the force. Think about it. What are you looking for? So, you know, when I get now and I get to an office, I can tell if it feels home. And you know, we're working so many hours in this country. You gotta feel that this feels home to you. I know you wanna climb, you wanna be very successful, but you have choices. Come on, this is Northeastern, right? That's what I said about salary. Do not compromise. You're going to set the standards in a different place. You don't have to start in a place that you don't like. I don't know why men gets that, and we just have, you know? I don't want to talk about football. I really don't want to talk about football. Right?
And one of the things, so I wanted to say in my introduction is, so I'm a first generation American in my family. You know, not the first to go to college, but you know, the first American to do so, and again, like, you know, chose the path to try and climb the ladder. And you know, Kelly, who was my co, can tell you this. I am so confident in who I am, and I could care less whether or not you like what I have to say. And the fact that I chose the path of financial services, I am not a 50-something-year-old white man, but I tend to be in a room full of them. And, you know, not only am I the only woman, but I'm the only African-American woman. And what I've come to realize is at first, you know, the first meeting with you, they're like, yeah, whatever, who's the girl? You know, that they sent, who's maybe filling a quota of some sorts. But one of the things is I am always confident in my ability, right? So you hired me because I know what I'm doing. And as long as that is known, they do develop that respect for you, right? And I think to your point, if they're not respecting you and you just don't like it, then absolutely you need to go. You should never wake up in the morning and go, oh God, I gotta go to that job. Never. Never. Like, you know you love your job when you're thinking about it at work, and you're thinking, in the shower, and you're thinking about it all day, and you can't wait to go to work and think about the next new thing that you're going to be doing.
If you don't want to go to work too many days in a row, it's time to go.
It's time to go. It's time to go. So true. So again, being confident in your abilities, and demanding their respect.
Roman, I would say at our company, the mission has been about leveling the playing field. We work with small product makers, consumer product makers, who wouldn't be able to get on the retail store shelves without a little bit of lift and support and marketing power. So our whole mission, again, leveling the playing field. Retail, surprisingly, is a male-dominated field. I don't know that so many of the buyers are. I mean, this field has felt fairly equal to me. I never feel uncomfortable in it. But when we're talking to the most senior people at some of the big companies, they're men. They're definitely men. Posture, confidence, carrying yourself with confidence. Huge piece of it. Fake it till you make it isn't quite right, but demonstrating that you know what you're doing and you're capable of doing it every moment of every day, key.
I have a funny story for that. So I think it was my second or third week at John Hancock. I had to present to a board, so the president of the company and all of his direct reports. So I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, I don't know any of these people. I don't even know what they look like. I had to print out their pictures and figure it out. But when you say posture, I did not sit back in my chair, and this meeting was like an hour and a half, and my back hurt so bad when I left that meeting, but it's so true. I wanted to make sure that I did this the entire time, right? It wasn't too smiley.
Right.
I'm right here along with you, you know, doing that. It's funny you say that. Just sit up straight till your back hurts.
But as soon as you say posture, everybody straightens, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think one other thing that's helped me is that, you know, I work with almost all men, and they're the things that I hear on a day-to-day basis are pretty crazy. And I mean, to your point, I love Shaman, I've been there my entire career. But giving feedback, giving like real and relevant feedback to these guys about what is and isn't okay, and not being whiny or ridiculous about it, but just being like, hey, what was that? That's not okay. You can't do that. you cannot say that to anyone. And just being kind of an adult about it and have it, relevant and within a day. And I think that that kind of helps buy your respect, or not buy your respect, but get respect also. It's just being, being honest about who you are to these guys and setting your boundaries.
And I would say, empathy, right? I think empathy is really important, especially when you have difficult conversations. Doesn't matter if it's man or woman, but for this example, if it's man, with respect, but killing with a smile. Sometimes it's much more effective than being emotional and all stressed about it. And right, with a smile. Say the hardest thing with a smile. Very effective. With men. It's not flirting. Don't get confused.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
We talk a lot about that at work too, being right versus being effective, and we get feedback all the time that we don't smile enough. And like, those guys would never give each other that feedback that they don't smile enough. But it's like, if what I'm saying is, if you're gonna hear me, if I smile and you're gonna hear what I'm saying, if I'm smiling, and that's the difference between hearing me and not hearing me, I am happy. If that's gonna make what I'm saying effective versus, me knowing what's right, fine. It's kind of choosing your battles.
I would have to add to, just from some recent experience with men and women, that being patient enough to be empathetic and smile while delivering the messages again and again and again is also effective to managing. It's that patience. I find it very, very challenging. I do. Patience is not my own particular virtue, but it's one that you, as a manager, you need to sort of foster so that you can say it again, say it a little differently, say it till they hear you, right? Everyone has a different way and a different understanding of things. I might say it one way to one person, immediately get it, but have to repeat it in a different way to somebody else. And that takes patience and empathy and communication skills.
I guess the last thing that I would say to that point is also having a solution. So I think, I'm not sure who just said it about, being whiny and or maybe saying, please don't do that, or this is going on. And honestly, sometimes that works if you have a male manager, right? Because I always had female managers, and for the first time I now have a male manager. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be, how do I figure this out? How do I talk to him, right? I can't go in and say, oh, Philip was sick last night, and he's going to get it. He doesn't care, right? He could care. I mean, he might care that, yes, he has children too, but how do I not overshare? And how do I get my point across? And what I found is that going and stating the issues or the problems and immediately following that with a suggested solution has worked.
I have one other thing to add that's a skill to develop as you start your careers. Learn to manage up. As you get to know, and everyone will be different, every one of your first bosses will be different, but they all need support in different ways. Like, none of us are perfect. If you work with me, you'd want to help me with my patience. But being on, everyone has a different way of doing that. But that's something I think that it's good to bear in mind, that you're not just managing your own workday, but you're helping your boss manage their goals and objectives, and then your direct reports as well.
So, let me break the news to you. Not that you didn't know that. As a woman, you're going to find it hard to raise money. As I said, I think that you have a responsibility when you hire a woman to pay them high. Because you can always hire a woman for a lower salary than men in this market still. So, having said that, there is a way to look at this and say, this is crazy, I'm not going to do that. But I think that extraordinary women starting great businesses, and as you know, there's more women-owned businesses than men in this country. And we contribute more to this economy than this country. and than men in this country. So I don't see why not. So when I think about it and I get out of here and I'm thinking about my next business, I can say, oh my God, you know, I have 2 children at home. I have to start about a new idea. I know it's going to be hard to raise money. I know I'll have problems, you know, maybe hiring men, whatever. Or I can say, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. And you surround yourself with people that believe in you. People that provide you good energy. People that believe in your faith. People that see the potential. And when you're down, you know, write a note to yourself. It's going to get uncomfortable today. It's not so bad. Because tomorrow, I'm back, right? And that's very important, because there's going to be ups and downs. But I would argue that the road is not secured when you're going to climb the ladder. It's unpredictable too. So there are challenges as a woman, but it's also the opportunity. Who can kill with a smile, right? So I happen to be in the last couple of months in the brain training market. And there are differences. I know it's very risky to say that in a university, but I will say it anyway. Not from Northeastern. So. There are differences when you look on the brain, when we did research between how the woman brain is built and how the man is, there are some differences. And it doesn't mean that one is better than another one. But when I talk to you, I use my left and the right. When a man will talk to you, they use only the right. When you look on the size of the intuition, you know, why do they say that women have more intuition? It's bigger than a man's brain. We sense more. We feel more. We connect more. So, I'm not going to give you now a lecture about the brain, but there's so many ways that we can use and leverage our full potential. And I see so many women that do not utilize that because we were raised, at least my generation, that was before you were born, is that we have to fit in. Right? We gotta climb the ladder, we gotta do
your age.
right? We gotta do, you know, we gotta go to school and then we're gonna have to find a good job. And if we're out of the job, that's very, very bad. But that's not where you are now. Reach your full potential, even if it's hard. I can't wait to see that. I didn't answer the question.
You touched on all the points. There's a great quote, I think it's from the woman who founded Burt's Bees. I think this is the right one, where it talks about how success is getting up just one more time than you fall, really. And it's a great quote, right? And it's one that Jules and Joanne lived by. You know, Grommet is now 5 years old. There were a number of challenges with the funding. The Series A came easy. Series B, they shopped for a long time. They went to a lot of pitches. They pitched the business incessantly. Jules never gave up. She'd say it differently if she were here, but from my outside looking in perspective, it was important for us to be normal when she got back to the office and doing our thing and working our work and getting it done and continuing to move forward in our own small ways, even as she was struggling to find the next round of funding. And it was kind of amazing because she'd come back from these meetings really, really low, and still get up the next day, go to the next meeting, and you know, eventually it worked, right? Her tenacity and persistence has astounded me. So much respect and admiration. I'd say, the challenge was mostly in the fundraising and the meeting with men who saw a small e-commerce business working with niche makers who hadn't yet made it. Why? And how does it scale? Their big question was, how does it scale? How will you have enough ideas? And to Sharon's point, you have enough ideas because this economy is a maker movement economy now. You've got businesses starting up grassroots, like you don't need anything. These craft businesses, Etsy was a good example of that to begin with.
Right.
And so anyone can start a business, can build a product, can make a company. And it's businesses like ours that hope to elevate those to get better attention and more light of day and better VC. I mean, that'll be a tangent. That'll be a tangent.
Right.
Stop.
And let me tell you something that nobody teaches in school is you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You're going to fail. If you're not going to try, you're not going to go anywhere, right? So, to me, really, the most important thing, most of you in the crowd, I believe, do not have kids yet. But I have 2 daughters. What I learned is to share my failures with them. And the reason for that is because I want them to understand that the road is a little bumpy, and that's okay. So when you go out there, it doesn't matter if you look for a job, you're going to start a business, it's going to be bumpy. But you have to keep trying, and you don't give up.
I think in the beginning, my view of success, again, growing up, first generation American to a single parent, living in an apartment in Dorchester, it was a house and husband. And, that was success. Like, how can I make enough money to get those things? And then I quickly realized that that wasn't success for me. And I've been asked this question a lot. And honestly, I define success as happiness. As long as I'm happy, I absolutely have to be happy in my job. If I'm not happy in my job, it's just not going to work. But one of the ways that I find happiness every day in my work is making sure that I am there to mentor someone. So I've had mentors, and I've also had people refuse to mentor me, and other women. And so I make it a point to do every and anything I can for those that work for me or those that reach out to me to help them in any way, shape, or form. So even if I have an employee who says, I really think I want to go work at Facebook, then I'm going to call everybody I know that works at Facebook. And I'm going to help that person do that. So that really is how I define success, is happiness and helping others find theirs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I define success as being paid to go to work every day. I also have to say I like having big picture goals. I like that I know what the company revenue goals are. I like that I can tie my daily work to them. I think that's powerful stuff too. I think when I was more junior in my career, I didn't always understand that big picture, and we try to make sure that everybody at Grommet gets that and understands exactly how their daily work is impacting those overall goals. We have something every week we call sticky note meetings. The idea is that you meet with your manager and just cover an agenda that can fit on no longer than a sticky note, right? It's supposed to be 15 or 20 minutes. And one of the things we check in about is, okay, how'd your week go? What was good, what was bad? And kind of check in on your overall goals. And everybody sets individual goals, we have the corporate goals, so it's that, and I do feel like I get to write those goals for myself, the team gets to write them for themselves as well, those individual goals and the corporate goals. It's sort of, I feel like success ties all of that together, knowing what you're going for. And I think you can do that whether you're part of a corporation or just, wanting to run your first 10K or do a triathlon or whatever it is, knowing how you're structuring yourself so you can feel successful in your achievements.
I don't know yet. I think that I definitely feel successful in the job that I've had at Shauna and that I've created for myself, and I am really happy there, but I would hope that that morphs into more or something different along the way. But I think that, definitely feeling like you are being effective and happy in what you're doing is huge.
That's a big question. I don't think I got there yet. Right? right? I mean, that's part of being curious about life. But I think priorities change. I mean, you'll know, I think phase one would be, is, you know, do I got the title, you know, do I get the salary? You know, you work around the clock, you know, you're 20-something. In your 30s, you looking for some social life. In your 40s, you realize, you know what? Forget about the party. I want to go to sleep.
That happens in your 30s.
So,
It's worse in your 40s.
but to me, it goes back to the whole, as a whole person, what makes you successful, right? I think job is critical, especially in our culture. But it's not the only thing. It's who you are, what do you want to be, do you feel healthy, do you feel good, do you have a good relationship, right? Are you giving back? So, look, you know, have your own canvas, see what is really important to you. As I said, that would be the smartest thing that I could do, is just running, you know. Running without even, nobody's chasing you, right? What do you want? Because you guys have so many options, and you have the responsibility, I believe, to take the time, get to know yourself, and believe that you can aim big. Because if you go back to my brain conversation, I would argue that women do not reach to their full potential. Doesn't mean that they have to be the CEO. It's what they do with their life. When you're going to leave Earth, what are you going to say in heaven? What did I do? That's success. I'm not there yet.
I just want to add a personal story. And Sharon just touched on this. So in your 20s, the working 24/7, working, trying to get the house, right? Trying to get the house and the money and everything else. And and health is extremely important. And at 26, I had a stroke from stress and work. Always working, right? And working to get to what? Like, you know, it was sort of like, work should never be worth your health. And so, you know, putting things into perspective, I always make sure moving forward that, again, that's why I think I said making sure I'm happy. Stress is going to happen at work, right? You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. But if you're to the point where it's affecting your health, where you're losing sleep, where you're not eating, no deadline is ever worth your health and your family. So, you know, that's one of the things that I will say, and it's one of the things that now I make sure, you know, I am leaving work at this time. And especially in today's day where we have iPads and iPhones and and your work, they can access you on vacation and they can access you everywhere. You have to find time to shut it off every now and again and do the things that are important. And whether that be family or your friends or whatever it is, your mental health and your physical health are so important, because as women, we are emotional beings and we do overthink a lot, right? So that's just one thing that I wanted to share with you all, because I did run myself ragged. So please don't do that.
It dictated the beginning of my career, because I went right from a communications major into I went right into media relations and then corporate communications, and I thought I wanted to be a writer, and so I was writing a lot of corporate communications, salary guides, fluff type pieces like that, sort of B2B corporate newsletters and things like that. But as I grew, it's less important. I mean, I do think I do still use marketing communications skills every day, and I feel like I get the most out of the degree that I got, but I don't think it totally dictated other than the beginning of my career. So, half and half. I use it, I'm grateful for it, but I don't think it's the end of the world if you find that your degree doesn't take you where you want to go.
I started as a psychology major, and then my mother said, you know, I really think you should take up communications. And I was like, what's that? Okay, I'll sign up for it. And then, right? And then quickly realized, like, oh, I kind of like this. You know, there are absolutely skills that I've taken. I mean, I still do work in a corporate communications department, as I did at Liberty Mutual, but I honestly thought that I was going to announce videos on MTV when I graduated school, right? And I had these big dreams of being on BET and all these, and quickly realized, like, yeah, no, that's not what I'm going to do. And that's really what I focused on in school. Like, radio was my major, so I started in radio, to your point, in the beginning of my career, and it's evolved since then. And I've learned, you know, I've worked on advertising campaigns, things that I did not learn in school and wasn't a focus of my major. So
I think it's more important when you come to job interviews to learn who is sitting in front of you and what they're looking for. Again, at least when I hire students or after school, again, what are you looking for, who you are, what did you do in your life? That's very important. Because again, it's very important what you learn in school, but it's also important what else you're going to do.
sorry, as I said earlier, you made a point about choosing something. And one of my pet peeves when I interview someone is when they come in and tell me about the 10 different things that they know they can do really, really well, when the job is this. And, you know, sometimes I say, okay, well, it doesn't sound like the job that I have for you, the job that I have here is for you, but, okay, tell me more about yourself so that I can maybe help you find another position in this company, or I can help you with my network. And again, it's sort of like, oh, I'm really good at sales, but I really like TV, but I really like, don't do that. Don't.
And know why you're sitting in that chair.
Exactly.
Know why you're sitting in that chair. You might have a totally different story for the next chair you go sit in, but know why you're sitting in that chair.
Yeah.
That's your smile. It's in your smile and your delivery and your empathy.
I think being confident in what you know and what you're bringing to the table, but you're not blowing it out of proportion.
So I love being bossy,
I say that.
but I disagree with Sheryl Sandberg. I actually don't think you have to push in and lean in at any price. I really don't. I don't think that, there was a great article about, I don't remember her name, that she was saying that she read Sheryl Sandberg's book and she felt so bad. And she had a life before, you know, she used to read those trashy novels, she went to
I read that article.
just,
That was a
remember you
great
read that?
article, yeah.
She just went to meet with friends and, you know, but she wasn't like Sheryl Sandberg. So she stopped doing that and she volunteered here and she volunteered there and she worked, 26 hours a day, even though there's only 24, right? And she felt sick. She didn't like herself, she hated her life. So I don't think that that's the right balance either. I think you have to find your own path, and each path is very different. And some of us can do the 24, and Sheryl Sandberg happened to have all the help in the world. And some of us are more aggressive, but get to know who you are. And some of us needs to breathe more, and that's okay.
Skills. My only issue with the word bossy, I like words. I'm a communication person. Words are just words. They can't really hurt us if we don't let them. But bossy isn't a word you would use for a man. That's the only point on which I agree with that whole campaign. If you're not it's got to be a gender-free word. But on the other hand, right, like it's got its uses, sometimes bosses are around, they're bossy. I'm going to start using it on men too. It's just a word.
So it came up, I went to a women's conference last week, I'm not sure if anyone was in attendance with the ad club, and it came up, every single speaker it came up, and there was one speaker, her name escapes me, she was a CNN anchor, and she said, yeah, call me bossy, B-O-S-S, I am a boss, right? And that was another piece of advice that stuck with me, because I haven't been called bossy in those words exactly, but I do get the, you're aggressive, or, you know, so I embrace it. You know, if you fear me a little bit, that's okay, that's good. Like, I want, you know, I want you to like me, but I want you to fear me just a little bit.
24/7.
I do get the voice of guilt for not working 24/7. It depends on the company, it depends on the culture, and I think, you know, Sharon said some great things. Know the company that you're, ask those questions up front and in the interview, right? Ask them about the work-life balance, ask them about the work from home policy, ask them, you know, ask them those things, because there are companies that just, that's not how they operate, and it's not a part of the culture. And if that's something that's important to you, then maybe that's not the place that you should be. Right now, during my day, the way I do that is I always try to, and this is actually something I learned when I worked at the startup at Gather, leave your desk for 10 minutes. Go outside, weather permitting, even if it's just to grab lunch. Try not to eat lunch at your desk. I do it all the time. But just try to find time for breaks, whether that mean, you know, if you have children and it's calling in the daycare and just, you know, seeing how your son or your daughter's doing, you know, just please take time for yourself, and it's something that I just didn't do. I was always so uptight and worried about being the best that I can be and being seen, and being better than everybody else. And I just had to get comfortable in my own skin. And again, I'm just learning how to shut off. Like, literally, my husband was sort of like, this is not daddy daycare, you know, this is 24/7. And now I'm like making an effort. All right, 6 o'clock, it's off, phone is off. I'm not gonna check my email again until 7 in the morning, or whatever it is. And that's from me actually going to waking up in the middle of the night and checking my emails all the time. And I think it was Ariana Huffington, it's like, don't sleep with your phone. And so once I heard her speak, and she said that, and she talked about your sleep pattern, right? You're no good. You can't be your best self the next day if you're not getting enough sleep and you're not taking care of yourself. So just put it away or turn it off. And so that's honestly what I've been trying to do. And taking real vacations, right? If you come from a family, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Then, you know, we take the vacations and it's like, oh, I'm just checking in the office. Like, no,
I have photo album.
don't do it.
I think you just have to take a sticky note and write down the barriers. You gotta set barriers with your family and with yourself, right? So when do you exercise? When do you take 10 minutes, I don't know if you meditate or not, I hate meditating. But where do you just not thinking about work, what you're gonna do? So you gotta write down, and then the reason that I'm saying have a sticky note, because that's your permission slip, right? You know how do I give my kids a permission slip? The same thing, give it to yourself. Because otherwise you're gonna get sick. It doesn't matter, it could be just a cold, but it's the same thing, because you didn't let your brain relax. So for the guilt feeling, have to sleep.
I think it's definitely important to set boundaries where, and I think the first couple of years that I worked constantly, and the last thing I'd do is check my email before I went to bed and be by my bed, and people call all the time, and I travel for work constantly, and so now it's every single day, you know, I work out from 11:30 to 1, almost every single day, and it's like, at the beginning, you know, you felt so guilty, like leaving in the middle of the day, but it's like, I'm there from 7 till 6, almost every day, and so if you don't take that time for yourself, I'm a much better person to deal with in the afternoon if I get a run in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Or the guy that sits next to me, we go and play tennis, you know, when it's nice out every Wednesday. And so just carving out, if you're at a company where they're laid back enough that they recognize the hours that you put in and they're not, you know, you're not clocking in and clocking out, and you have that ability to make sure that you're taking time for yourself throughout the day, or, you know, before the day starts, it definitely changes the way you present yourself, in my opinion. My mood is definitely much better if I'm more relaxed.
The answer is yes.
Right, that's what I was gonna say too.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, the yes means, are you ready to start immediately, or do you think you need to take a job first, right? There's some programs in town, and I lead one of them. I didn't mean to promote it, but you asked, so here comes the promo. It's the Women Innovating Now Lab. I started that in Babson for students that just coming out of the university. And it's a year-long program, and this year we're going to open it up to everyone. With the idea is that we help you during the year to start your business. There's some mentors, there's going to be some space, and there's going to be other graduates that just start in businesses. So I think there's not, I have today in the lab, I have women from 9 different countries, undergrads, grads, all different ages. It's more of when do you think that you are prepared. Now I'm going to say something about women. We always feel that we're not prepared. So if you have a good idea, take my email, we can talk about that. And it's taking the next move. And I'm going to say something, it's not age related. It's very hard to decision that you're going to start something. But once you are on the road and you're on the path, it is possible. There's never a good time to start a business. It's like going to visit Israel. There's never a good time. But it's amazing.
Now, do they need to apply? Are you running it like an accelerator, or?
They need to apply.
I need to apply for this.
And the way we accept we call them winners, is very different than other accelerators, I think, in the world. It's not based on the idea, it's based on the character. We want to know, first of all, do we believe that you have what it takes to build a big business? And only then we're going to look on the business, but it's secondary. We have women in the lab that started with something, forgot about it already. They moved to the next idea. That's not the point. You are a starter.
That's cool, so you're developing the leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's work in progress. It's trial and error, right? I made a lot of mistakes. So my daughter the other day, I asked her, right, I'm thinking about what's going to be next for me. I asked my daughters. One is 11, the other one is 7. And I asked them, how do you know that you made the right decision? Because I made a wrong decision recently. And again, you don't want to bring everything to the table with them. But I asked them just in general. So my 11 years old said, okay, I don't know what you're asking, but here's what you need to do. Look back to what you did before. You must have done something that was right. Take what you did and apply it to the future. And that's so true. I mean, there's so many things that we learn during our life that we're doing that prepare us to make the right decision. Then I asked my 7 years old, what should I do? She said, Mama, what do you think? This is a silly question. You make a mistake, you don't repeat the same one. That's it. That's what the teacher tells us. Don't you get it? Don't make the same mistake. That's how you know you make the right decision.